Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special edition of Sports Talk with the Guys. Uh, and it is Saturday noon on the Pacific Coast. It is 12:01 p.m. Today is December 21st, 2024. I am joined by who, in my universe, are clearly Hall of Famers, both Dan Schlossberg and Bob Nessoff. Good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you today?
Great to be on with you, Roger.
Okay, Roger, my picture's not coming up. I don't know where it is. Whatever.
That's okay. What you can do is you can go to your settings, Bob, at the bottom of the page and try to adjust the picture. If not, I need you to go out and come back in and activate camera. So see if you can adjust your settings. But ladies and gentlemen, we're doing this because in the baseball world, we have received news and we have confirmed it, unfortunately, that Baseball Hall of Famer, all-time great, possibly the greatest leadoff hitter, and Dan will be able to refute, confirm, or deny, one of the most entertaining individuals in recent Major League history. We are talking about the passing of Rickey Henderson, and I was stunned by this news, Dan, and I called you to let you know about it. I don't even know if you've had time to process this.
Well, yeah, I did. He was only 65 years old. Satchel Paige was still pitching at that age. So 65 is pretty young.
Yes, the exploits of Rickey Henderson are amazing. And I don't know if I had the opportunity, but I asked Bob if he'd ever had the chance to meet Bob or Rickey or even see him play. As a Yankee fan, Bob, how would you answer that?
I've seen him play. I was a fan. I mean, how could you not be a fan of Rickey Henderson? But unfortunately, I never had the privilege of meeting him.
I did not. I was close at Anaheim Stadium. There were several days when they had autograph events, and I missed out on meeting Mr. Henderson. But he played 24 seasons in Major League Baseball for 9 teams from 1979 to 2003. And Dan, from the get-go, this man was an incredibly exciting player, was he not?
Very definitely. He holds records for stolen bases for a single season and in a career. And that's pretty impressive. Nobody's ever going to break that record.
I don't believe so. And as you mentioned, he passed away at 65. His birthday, I believe, is Christmas Day.
Yes.
So he was just short of his next birthday. I remember when he was playing with, I believe it was the Sea Dogs down in San Diego, and they offered him $1 million to go into Major League Baseball Hall of Fame with the Sea Dog cap, which was kind of interesting, from the Golden Baseball League. Didn't come to pass, of course. And because of that offer, correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but Major League Baseball tightened up the rules on which team you could go in as.
That's a good point, Roger, because it used to be that the players had to say, and now it's the Hall of Fame that has to say on what had. But actually, 1/3 of all the players in the Hall of Fame have no logos on their hat.
I did not know that. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Do you recall when the change went into effect? I know it was shortly after the $1 million offer, but do you recall when that was?
If my memory is correct, it was because the Montreal Expos had a few guys who qualified for the Hall of Fame. But after the team became the Washington Nationals, the Nationals did not take any credit for the Expos, and they didn't recognize these guys. That's when this started, because they wanted to put a Montreal Expos logo on the hat. The team didn't exist.
Very good. So, wow, Dan, there it is. I did not know that. I thank you for enlightening us. Now, Bob told me something just before we went live, and I do know that Rickey Henderson was nicknamed the Man of Steel, and I believe after he signed a 4-year, $12 million contract with the team, of course, the very next few weeks or year, we saw an explosion in salaries. And all of a sudden, Rickey was not earning what he felt that he should be earning. And he famously had a tip jar with him. Do you recall that, Dan?
Oh, very much so. And he was the man of steel in more ways than one. STEEL and STEAL.
Ah, yes. Yes. Bob, what are some of the memories that you have of Rickey Henderson? Because I have one that I want to share right now, and it was on a Monday. It was was it Memorial Day? Well, anyway, go ahead, Bob.
There's so much to say about the man. I mean, when he got on base, you just sat there on the edge of your seat waiting for him to steal a base. He set records with base stealing, with the runs scored and what have you. I mean, the man was an all-around great player.
Dan, you saw him before you had a chance to meet him. What were some of your impressions of Mr. Rickey Henderson?
The most obvious thing that struck me throughout his career, he batted right-handed and threw left-handed.
That's right.
That is quite unusual. Very few people do that. Now, had Rickey Henderson batted left-handed as well, he would have been on base even more and would have more stolen bases. He would have been closer to first base.
Yeah.
I defer to Dan. I mean, I'm a baseball fan. I've written some stuff about it, but Dan is the expert in this field far more than I am.
Yeah, but you're an expert because you saw him play as well as did I.
Well, that means I'm older.
No, we all saw him play.
Yeah, we all did. I have to tell you, first of all, I want to invite people who are watching the program, go ahead and share some of your thoughts and feelings or comments that you have. I want to remind the audience that it is within the last hour now. It's still not even on the Major League Baseball site. ESPN, I still believe, does not have it. But we have done our due diligence. It has been confirmed. We have the report and a confirmation that Mr. Rickey Henderson passed away. Now, Dan, before I go over some of his numbers, as you would speak to the individual, did he in person or only when he spoke to the press, did he speak in third person?
Yes, he did. He did. Like he would say, Rickey did this, Rickey does that, Rickey believes this. And also, when he got his 130th stolen base to break the record, I believe that occurred on the same day that Nolan Ryan pitched his 7th no-hitter. And so he was upset that he had to share the headlines.
Well, I'm sorry, Dan, go ahead.
No, Bob, go ahead.
I was going to say that he debuted in Major League Baseball at age 20 with the Oakland A's. And only 3 years later, he set a modern record by stealing 130 bases in 1982. The guy was a talented all-around hitter who blended bat control, power, and plate. He was an amazing player.
One of the first memories I ever had with him was down at Anaheim, of course, and seeing him play against the Anaheim Angels. But my most vivid memory is when I was in school. I was going to go back to the school that evening, but that's why I don't remember if it was Memorial Day Monday or Labor Day. He was with the Yankees already, and we made it for the game, and he was with the Yankees, and he was going to come up to bat. And I remember telling my sister, it was in 1986, and I said, this guy leads baseball in leadoff home runs. This is a guy that can dominate a game, and he can take control defensively, offensively, everything. I don't think it was the first pitch, but in the first at bat, lo and behold, he made me into a prognosticator because it was very easy. I said he was going to hit a home run. I didn't. I just said he led Major League Baseball at that time. And I believe he has the record for most leadoff home runs as well. But Rickey Henderson came up, bam, he hit it out. And the stadium went wild, even at Anaheim against the Yankees, because Rickey Henderson was an incredible performer, a showman. Unbelievable.
I'll give you an oddball stat about Rickey Henderson.
Please.
He never had a 30-30 season, 30 home runs and 30 stolen bases, because he never hit as many as 30 home runs in a season.
I did not know that. I know he hit 28, I believe.
That's his career peak, 28.
Yes. And, of course, he had 130 stolen bases in that 1 year. And Dan, are you talking about the year in 1989 when he set when he broke Lou Brock's record? Was it that
Yes.
day?
Yeah.
Wow. He shared it with Nolan Ryan. Wow. And I remember the day that he stole that one. He stole third base. He was with the Athletics, and it was versus the Yankees. And for him, his comment was, if I'm going to set the record, it couldn't have been better. Both the Yankees and the Angels were at the same game.
That's true. Well,
Did you?
Rickey
Go
played for
ahead.
9 different teams.
Yes.
And that includes the Yankees. He played for Oakland, I think 4 or 5 different stints with Oakland.
Yeah.
They couldn't
It
get
was-
away from him. In '92,
Oh.
he was held the second in franchise history in games played, 1,704 games, and was the A's all-time leader in steals, 867 runs scored.
Dan, I did not know that.
I'm sorry, let me correct that. 867 steals, and then I'm not sure how many runs he scored out of that.
Okay. He played for the Athletics from 79 until 84 in a very famous 5-player trade where he came over with, I believe, you know what? I don't remember, but I know the Athletics got Jay Howell, one of the better relievers at the time with the Yankees, and it was a 5-for-2. I do recall that. And he played for the Yankees from 1985 through midway of the 89 season. And then he played from the Athletics from 89 through 93, which he was traded to the Blue Jays. And then in 94, he came back. He played with the Padres in 96, 97, went to the Angels in late 97. And then there it is, Dan, in 1998, his 4th trip with the Athletics. In 99 and 2000, the Mets, also with the Mariners, 2001, the Padres, 2002, the Red Sox, and finally in 2003 with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, Rickey Henderson played 3,081 hits. He had 10,961 at-bats. He scored 2,295 runs, collected 3,055 hits. For the baseball mavens and all of us, he played 3,081 games, 3,055 hits. Wow. Almost a hit a game. Unbelievable. He had 1,115 RBIs. He walked 2,190 times and struck out 1,694. Unbelievable.
It's unusual to have more walks than strikeouts.
Yes. He hit 297 home runs and he stole 1,406 bases. Absolutely phenomenal. His first year, 33 steals, then 100, then 56, and then 130. And 108, I believe, was the last year that he crossed the century mark. But I felt that one of his best seasons, Dan, was with the Yankees in 1985 when he had 24 home runs. I believe it was, let me see. I think it was like, how many RBIs did he have? He had 72 with 80 stolen bases. And I think he hit like 327 or something like that, which was impressive. What is one of your fondest? Go ahead.
Anybody who hits over 300 like that is impressive.
Yeah, he walked out with 3,055 hits, hit 1,000. Dan, what is one of the moments that stand out for you regarding Rickey Henderson?
I just think that pitchers were so afraid of what he might do, whether he hit a home run or even walked and then advanced on a ground ball and a fly ball and then scored on a ground out. You know, he could do that. He would score one way or another somehow. But when he got on base, he would irritate the pitchers and they're totally lose their concentration on the guys behind them.
Bob, what are some of the memories that you have of Rickey Henderson?
Yeah, pretty much what we've been discussing. I mean, the guy was an exciting player to watch. You could sit in the stands, but when he came to bat, you were at the edge of your seat. When he got on base, you could see the looks on the opposition players. They knew he was going to run. They waited for him to run, and they couldn't catch him. He befuddled them.
We will talk about his crouch and batting style in a moment because that was a bit contentious while he was doing it. But one of the memories I have, I believe he was playing left field for the Yankees, and there was a foul ball that was hit to left center, and the center fielder was a younger kid coming in, and then Rickey, of course, calls him off, makes the catch, and then Rickey had that gesture for a little while. Remember Dan and Bob, where he'd catch it, and then he would catch it, and he would do something like this. You know, there was that whip, and he looked at the Yankee center fielder. No one knows what was said, but the guys that were calling the game said, he's telling the center fielder, dude, I may be in left, but I'm the center fielder for this team. And that was good, even though he was playing left field. Interestingly enough, Dan, didn't he play left field almost exclusively?
He did. He played some center and some right, but mostly left field. And he was also baseball's answer to Muhammad Ali. I mean, he would always say, I'm the greatest. I'm the best base stealer of all time. I'm the best leadoff hitter of all time. Those kind of quotes. Actually, he didn't say it that way. He would say, Rickey Henderson is the best base stealer of all time.
Yeah, the Royal Rickey.
Yeah.
I have to tell you that, and before we get to his Hall of Fame speech, which was really one of those most eagerly awaited, or everyone wanted to hear Rickey, right? Was he going to speak in third person, or would he be, not? We all know what happened. It was maybe one of the greatest disappointments in Hall of Fame speeches that Rickey did not speak in third person. But for those of us that remember, it was still one of the greatest speeches of all time, his Hall of Fame acceptance speech. But there was never, Rickey's deserving of this award. There was none of that. It was great. Now, Thomas says left field was the whole outfield for that man.
Yes.
It was amazing. Now, Dan, if there was a failure or a fault to Rickey's game, what would it be, if anything?
Two things. Number one, he did not throw very well, which is why he played left field instead of right field.
Yes.
And number two, he didn't always hit for a high batting average.
Right. Yeah, it was almost average when it came to the batting average. His on base was very high. But yes, I don't even know if he had an accurate arm. He had a decent arm, right, Bob? He wasn't wild, or Dan, he wasn't wild, but there was no real strength to the arm, right?
Well, let's put it this way. He threw better than Barry Bonds, but that's not saying anything.
That's correct. And to Barry Bonds' credit, I remember one year when he was playing, he said that that's what he intends to work on, is being a better thrower. And that was amazing when you think about Barry Bonds and Rickey Henderson. So skilled, great gloves, but they didn't have the best arms, right?
That's right.
You couldn't run.
They were all-around players. Not everybody was an all-around player. You had players who really excelled in one area. I mean, look at today. You've got one pitcher who was also a designated hitter. At one point, the pitchers were number 9 in the lineup, and they were considered an automatic out because they couldn't hit, but they could pitch.
Yeah. We are looking forward to see if the young man is able to recover and pitch again, but he's with the Dodgers, and we'll not mention that any further. But, I just lost Bob. Hopefully we'll be able to get him back in a moment. But, Dan, one of the issues that we had with Rickey Henderson is that he had a crouch, and it was a significant crouch. He hit from that crouch very well. But the problem was that he would come out of the crouch to hit as well. So, what was the issue, or what were your comments, Dan, about that? Because Rickey always gave umpires grief when they called the high strike.
Well, the crouch did make his strike zone smaller. He
Yes.
wasn't a huge guy to start with. He was about 5'10", and the crouch made him seem even less. That's why I got so many walks.
Now, knowing the game as you do, and I'm going to ask Bob for that as well.
Don't put me up against Dan because I'm going to come in fourth best.
And that's fine, Bob, because I would probably be before and after you. So let's do the math on that. What do you believe about that crouch on Rickey Henderson? Because there were a few umpires that, as Rickey would walk up, they would take the mental image, because you know where the strike zone is from, and that's why they would call that high pitch. Are you in agreement with that, Dan, or do you disagree? Is it that when you're in your batting stance, that's your strike zone? So in Rickey, it was a very small strike zone. Was it legit, or were the umpires correct in calling the high strike when they did? It wasn't all that often.
You're asking me, or about who you're asking, Roger?
I would ask you, Dan, and I apologize.
No.
I may have said Bob.
Well, it's okay. Every umpire had his own strike zone. No two were exactly alike.
Yes.
And that's why Major League Baseball is seriously considering automation instead of live umpires.
All right, let me ask you this. 2 questions. What is the strike zone for Aaron Judge?
Well, what it is right now, which is roughly about the letters, somewhere around here to just right above the knees.
Yeah, but the umpires seem to screw that up. What was the strike zone for that little guy that Bill Veeck put into play?
Or Eddie Goodell.
You
What?
mean that little kid, right?
That was
The
Bill
midget.
Veeck, wasn't
The
it?
midget. Yeah, Eddie Goodell.
Yeah, the midget.
Under 4 feet.
The midget.
Yeah. What was the strike zone? Inches?
Something like that. He did,
Because done
he
what
did
Ron
walk on.
Woodward did when he did the first pitch for the anniversary of the, what do you call it, the designated hitter. You could roll the ball into that guy.
Well, I do know that Major League Baseball put in a rule after that there had to be a certain height minimum or something like that. But I don't recall all the issues related to that. But I do want to give a quick shout out to Aisha Kerr. Thank you for the comment on the page. And for Nina Castillo Ortiz, thank you for giving us a like. Yes, we are saddened, definitely saddened with the passing of Rickey Henderson. But folks, I have to tell you that in dark times and in good times, Rickey Henderson, as I mentioned earlier, was a showman. He came to play every day, and he came at you. Dan, I never got the impression that Rickey was a dirty player. Hell no. He was a good, tough player.
Agreed.
And he would come at you hard. I don't think anyone would ever say that Rickey was a dirty player in any way whatsoever.
It's also worth noting, Roger, that he was from Oakland. So when he was with the Athletics, he was playing at home.
Yes, that's right. He was. And it is a shame that there was never a monument to Rickey Henderson. If there was someone that deserved to have a bronze or anything, I think it would have been Rickey.
Which team?
I'd have to say the Athletics, but now that point is mute.
See, I'm a religious bigot. I go for the Yankees.
He put some great numbers up with the Yankees, there's no doubt. But I just believe it was a colossal mistake when the Yankees traded away Rickey Henderson.
But not only Rickey, I mean, the Yankees were known for picking people up at the end of their career. That was it, Johnny Sain, Enos Slaughter, people like that. They had one great season and then they were gone. But,
But Rickey was still like 30 or 31. He was young. And if I remember correctly, 1989, was the beginning of those 2 years that the Yankees were just not really a good team. And they needed something, and they traded him away. And they traded him to the Athletics, who were in playoff contention. Yeah, they were going to the World Series.
They also traded, what's his name? Oh, my God, I just went blank. Mr. October. Reggie Jackson. They traded him away. And then Steinbrenner got up a couple of months later and said he regretted doing it.
That was at the end of the 1981. Yeah, it was 81.
They brought Dave Winfield in. They would have kept Rickey Henderson. Not Rickey Henderson.
Reggie Jackson.
Reggie Jackson. They would have had one hell of a battery over there.
Well, they did play together for 1 year. And whereas Mr. October did come to play, Mr. May didn't come to play, apparently. That's unfortunately the moniker that George Steinbrenner gave to Dave Winfield for that. And that was really mean, because Dave Winfield was
he was a nice guy.
Yeah, he was a nice guy, and he was a good player. But
Dan and I have met him. We know what he was like.
But George, one of the few times he got snookered on his own deal, huh, Dan and Bob?
Oh yeah, definitely. It happens. Well, it was like Jay Buhner when he traded him.
Yes. Now, the thing with Dave Winfield, it was written in such a way that there were escalator clauses, if I'm not mistaken, whereas Dave Winfield was going to earn about $1 million a year, but the escalator clauses took it sky high. And George was really unhappy with it. He was trying to get it, negated or something. And then we found out about who Howard Spiro was and all that other stuff for Dave Winfield.
We're getting kind of a little bit away.
Yeah, we definitely are.
But,
and that is my fault. I apologize. But definitely going back to Rickey Henderson, as Dan mentioned, only 65.
Yeah.
Wow. And I understand that one of the last times he threw out the first pitch, it was to his daughter. And I understand that was his last public appearance earlier this year. And it's really just a shame as baseball ends and we have the year coming to an end, 2024. What a shame. Rickey Henderson, one of the most electric players in the history of baseball. Dan, is he the greatest leadoff hitter of all time?
Yes, without question. He could do anything. Steal, hit a home run, distract the pitcher. When he got up, he represented runs scored.
Absolutely. I agree with Dan completely.
When he got on base, he razzed the pitcher because of the dangerous, and he also razzed the defense because he ran so hard each and every time. He would create errors on the defense because he ran so fast.
He would run, he would dance around. They never knew when he was going to take off like a rocket.
And then there were times you knew he was going to take off, and they still couldn't get him, right, Dan?
That's right.
Yeah. And we've got to mention Ohtani. I know you don't want to talk about him.
Not at all. Go ahead, sir.
He just completed a 50-50 season, the first one in baseball history. 50-plus home runs, 50-plus stolen bases. This is better than Rickey because Rickey never hit over 30 home runs.
Yeah, look, excuse me. Sorry, the voice was going. What Mr. Ohtani did, there's no doubt about it. It is absolutely phenomenal. And I hope Mr. Ohtani can keep it going. I really do. He's an exciting player.
Roger, look, compare the baseball 30, 40 years ago with today. The players are different. They're coddled quite often, but they're in better physical condition for the most part. I often wondered how Babe Ruth and Ty Cobb and players in that era would make out today. Rickey Henderson was right in the middle before then. Now, I mean, these guys are unbelievable. A pitcher is limited, to what? 70, 80, 90 pitches, and then they pull them?
Well,
who was it, Dan? You wouldn't know. I don't know the answer to this. There was a pitcher who pitched both ends of a doubleheader.
There were many pitchers actually in the 20s and 30s and 40s. Let me interrupt Dan on this one before he answers. Bob, I've been talking about this on Sports Talk with the guys. The players are in better physical shape, but why do they continue to bring the fences in?
Exciting home runs.
No, it's because the players cannot hit it out anymore. They just can't.
It depends on the players. There are players who can powder it completely. But my personal feeling is not that they can't hit it out anymore, but the fans love a home run.
Sure.
And I think that's why they're bringing the fences in, so they can get more home runs.
Okay, that's fair. And I'm going to ask for Dan's opinion. I have one more counterpoint to you. That is fair. It is because they're bringing more fans. But when you look at batting average and you look at home runs and strikeouts, these players, the perfect athletic specimens that they are hitting fewer home runs, and they are hitting at a lower clip than Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, Joe DiMaggio, all those guys, and Hank Aaron. Sorry, Dan. I missed a significant name there. I would argue, Bob, that Rickey Henderson belongs in the past of the players that were physically stronger than these guys today.
Individually,
yes.
today I think on the average the players are stronger, better conditioned than they were in those days.
All right, Bob.
But they're being coddled now as they were never coddled in those days.
Yeah, well, we can thank Mr. Super Agents and that. Dan, you're hearing a wonderful exchange. I believe these players are one of the better physical specimens, but they don't have the strength of players from the past. You tell me, Dan.
Well, it depends who we're talking about. There's a wide spectrum here. And the guys we should talk about are Marvin Miller, the man behind free agency,
yes,
who got into the Hall of Fame after being rejected 7 times. And I think that was a major mistake by the Veterans Committee to put him in the Hall of Fame because he hurt the game. How many work stoppages were there when Marvin Miller was in charge of the union?
Yeah, actually, there were
He was in
significant.
charge with the first strike, wasn't he, Dan?
Yes. Well, that 232-day strike that wiped out the 94 World Series was, the Players Association, they went on strike. And by the way, just so your viewers will know, we're going to have a big work stoppage that may wipe out the 2027 season because the current basic agreement expires on December 1st, 2026.
You're already calling it, Dan, that there's going to be a major work stoppage?
I would disagree with Dan, but he's going to turn out to be right.
Big time work stoppage because once Soto's salary got so excessive, everybody else's salary went up, paycheck went up, all the free agents, and most of the teams can't afford to compete.
Look, I just came off a cruise. It was called the Legends of Baseball cruise. Dan knows most of the people there. Ronnie Bloomberg, Jesse Barfield, Charlie Hayes, Mickey Henderson. I mean, these are all great players, personalities, but the salaries they were making then were, excuse the phrase, were bupkis compared to what's today. And they would have earned it today. They would have made big money. Every one of them.
Yeah, if we have players of even 20, 30 years ago today playing in today's game, if it were possible. But, folks, an argument that I've had about players playing back then, it doesn't work because, number one, the lifestyle, the ethic, the environment. Babe Ruth did not play in a healthy environment. He played in and what I mean is the food, number one. Okay, they're eating or consuming better food today. The lifestyle. There was no internet back then. They lived a rambunctious lifestyle. Mickey Mantle. I'm sorry?
You're leaving one thing out. Booze.
I'm leaving a lot of stuff out. But how about this? Mickey Mantle worked in a coal mine, didn't he, Dan? Growing up?
Yep.
He was innately stronger than every Major League Baseball today. Kids today never worked out the same way they did back then. That's why I contend that while you have a great physical specimen, they're not as strong as 20, 30, 40 years ago. But that's just my argument. I want to give a shout out to Marsha Middleton, Sonia Robles, Aisha Kerr, and of course, Nina Castillo Ortiz. Once again, we are talking about baseball in general, but we are talking about Rickey Henderson, the passing of Rickey Henderson now within the last 2 hours or so. Baseball has lost a wonderful, shining example of a player that altered the game while he played. Is that an exaggeration, Dan?
Not at all. I mean, he deserved to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he was.
Yes, clearly.
Which is amazing because he went to so many teams, and normally that would negate them getting into the Hall.
That's true. I worked against Gaylord Perry and Fred McGriff.
Right. And looking back, I do believe Fred should be in the Hall of Fame. I don't know how you feel about it. Gaylord Perry, dude, come on. Come on. And I just don't understand that. But Dan, I just read something about the Hall of Fame vote, and someone said that if you have a unanimous vote for the Hall of Fame, that means if you have 30 voters, you have 29 too many.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys agree with that, both of you? Okay.
I don't know if I agreed with it, but I understand what you're saying. Hey,
Okay.
I tell you, if anybody really wants some deep information about baseball, some things that you won't find anywhere, pick up Dan's new book, The Baseball Bible.
Right. I have an older one. Dan, I hand you the con. I'll be back in about 25 seconds. I'm going to get your books, and I'm going to get Bob's books as well. So I'll be right back.
Right.
Dan's book is baseball. Mine is about killing.
Well, your book is wonderful too, Bob. All your books.
Well,
Really enjoyed it.
thank you.
And you have the ability to write history and also political thriller.
But I bend my knee to you when it comes to baseball and sports.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm glad you enjoyed the cruise with Bloomberg.
I did. You know, it was good to see Ronnie again. Jesse and Marla Barfield were two of the nicest people I've ever met. What do you call it? I mean, there were so many good guys there. You know, look at the size of Dan's book compared to mine. It's too bad we're not getting paid by the word now, like they did in the old days.
Oh, yeah.
Now, there's a funny line that Bob said a moment ago, that if we're talking baseball amongst the three of us, he would come in fourth. No, that is not true. Far from. If anything, I would be in that. Ladies and gentlemen, The Home Run King, available right now by Dan Schlossberg. And it is incredible, that book. This is the most recent copy, but Dan has a new one due out very soon. Correct, Dan?
April Fool's Day.
April Fool's Day. Excellent. And that is the new baseball Bible.
That's me at the plate, April Fool's Day.
Yeah, you're funny. This is the book that I had before I met Dan. Baseball Gold. Remember that? I have that one. So I purchased this book before I ever had the privilege of meeting Dan.
Roger, ask Dan how many books he's published.
Yeah, how many do you have, Dan?
42.
Yeah. And
he doesn't sleep, he doesn't eat, he doesn't do anything but write books.
this man lives baseball. Bob Nessoff, Spider Hole. And Bob Nessoff and Howard Joseph Cohn, A History Lover's Guide to Bergen County. The gentleman that I am on air with, I am blown away by the skill that they have and the experience that they have. And I'm the lucky SOB that has the privilege of spending time with them. And they're on the network sharing their lives with us and their stories. And right now that Rickey Henderson has passed, I have to tell you that this is one of those moments that it genuinely, instantly brought me sadness. And it was, I want to talk about him. And Bob accepted my call. Dan accepted my call. Oh, funny. There's a call coming in right now, Bob.
It's probably Rickey.
Well, you never know. You never know. And I'm definitely going to miss him, but I was privileged, Dan, even though I did not meet him. I feel that I did because he responded to the fans during the game. He played the game with a passion that few people have exhibited. And Dan and Bob, I would humbly offer that he played the game well.
Very well.
Came well, and he was a gentleman.
He was funny. He was funny. There was no doubt about it.
He weren't no Ty Cobb.
No, he wasn't. But it is just so sad to see the ever young Rickey Henderson pass. I was shocked, absolutely shocked to have had this happen. My thoughts, along with Dan and Bob and everyone else on the network, we share with the Henderson family. We are saddened by your loss. You are dealing with the loss that we only know from a distance. But as baseball aficionados as we are, we will feel this loss of Rickey Henderson for some time to come. I miss him already. He was a great player.
Completely agree.
Yeah. Did you gentlemen want to share any additional stories on him or anecdotes?
I will yield to Dan.
Well, I remember during the 1999 National League playoffs.
Yes.
When Rickey and Bobby Bonilla got into trouble for playing cards in the clubhouse during the playoff game.
That's right. That's right. He was with the Mets with them at that time. Did you get a chance to interview him after? Did you ask him what hand he had?
I stayed away. I knew when to keep my distance.
Yeah.
It's a different day today. I mean, they would sneak smokes in the dugout. At one point, I forgot which team it was. Dan may know. The manager was trying to get the umpires to call the game on account of darkness, and the manager went out to the mound to talk to the pitcher using a flashlight.
Yes.
That's funny. Oh, wow.
I mean, they wouldn't get away with that today.
No.
No, definitely not. And to the baseball world, to the players that were his teammates and his opponents, I share in your sadness. I don't recall, Dan, Bob, I don't recall anything bad said about Rickey. Oh, well, okay. Lou Piniella, you may step aside on this one, Lou. But I remember when someone accused Rickey of, what was it? Jaking it during the 86 season or something like that. I don't know. Whatever. I know that was one of the only times something negative was said about him.
You know, people, they say you're low man on the totem pole, but it's the opposite. The famous Native Americans would be at the top of the totem pole. The ones on the bottom are the ones least, memorable. And anytime any athlete or personality, TV, movie star, you're always going to find detractors coming out of the woodwork. Just read the papers today. Oh, well, you don't have to read a paper. Read the New York Post. That's not a paper.
Oh, wow. But, all right, Bob, if anyone has, I suppose you would have the ability.
Hey, let him come. You know what I carry in the house.
Yeah, hey, it's all good. Rickey Henderson, his all-time hit numbers was 179 with the Athletics in 1980. 179 hits. His second best was with the Yankees, which I contend was one of his best all-around years. And he had 172 hits that year. Unbelievable. Just absolutely unbelievable. And stolen bases, as I mentioned, 130 as 82, as Dan mentioned, 108 in 83, 119 80. Just absolutely incredible. Baseball has lost a wonderful star, and we have the memories of it.
The only one who could come close to him today, and he's not playing anymore, is one of my favorite players, Brett Gardner. I mean, the man was lightning on the base pass. The base path. Oh, well, I can't talk anymore. Base path.
Yeah.
Thanks. I see Dan laughing at me.
As far as Yankees, I would agree. Brett Gardner was super fast. He did have some home run pop, and he was an outfielder, left-handed, but he was also left-handed batter. But Bob, I would argue with you. There is a guy on the Braves right now that probably could. Are we on the same page, Dan?
His last name is Junior.
By the way, would you share with the audience who it would be?
Roger is referring to Acuna, Ronald Acuna Jr. His father, by the way, played in the minor leagues, never reached the majors. But Acuna in 2023 was a unanimous National League MVP because he had 73 stolen bases and 41 home runs.
Yes.
Pretty impressive numbers.
As a matter of fact,
also batted .337 that year.
Dan and I go back more years than I want to count for either one of us. I think the only disagreements we've ever had related to baseball. Because my team has always been better than his, the Yankees.
Not true.
Hey, you won't bet me on the World Series anymore.
well, I don't want to put Dan in a spot either, but I guess he might be outnumbered by.
We all went up to Fenway Park some years ago. The Red Sox were playing the Braves, and Dan's famous comment to me was, "The only way I can get you to root for my team is to watch them playing the Red Sox," and he was right.
Oh, all right. We have a question from the chat room. Now, Thomas is also a Yankee fan, so Bob, you may be outnumbered a little bit, but Dan and Bob, and we'll start with Dan. If you build a baseball team with all players in history, pick 3 players to build around, who would you pick?
You want to go first, Dan?
I'll go first. Hank Aaron will be number 1, without any question. And then I want a really good pitcher. I think Walter Johnson, because
the train, right?
The big train. He won 411 games pitching for a terrible Washington Senators team. He had 110 shutouts, which is still a major league record. And the third one, maybe Ted Williams, because he was such a phenomenal hitter.
Wow.
Yeah, they can't do the Williams shift at the stadium anymore. It's outlawed now.
Right.
That's
I
right.
think I would have picked Babe Ruth. I would pick today Aaron Judge. I think he's really getting started. I think he's going to come in very well over the next couple of years. And I don't know. A third one is hard to pick. I don't know. I think Big Papi on the Red Sox. He was a good player, personality, and he was all in on the game.
I appreciate those choices. I want to give a shout out to Shirley. I don't know how to pronounce your name, Shirley, but it's L and a small X. How would you pronounce that, Dan? Is it Lee?
I think so.
Okay.
Or Lou, maybe?
Oh, it could be Lou. I apologize for not being able to pronounce your last name correctly, but thank you, Shirley. Again, thank you, Marcia. Thank you, Sonia, Aisha, and Nina. I find it intellectually amusing that we are talking of a baseball player and all 5 likes are female.
Oh, that's not unusual. My wife watched every baseball game with me, and she could sit down and say, "Oh, look who's coming to bat," and she'd rattle off his stats. She knew more about it than I did.
Wow.
Unfortunately, now I'm watching her games by myself.
No, I hear you. Yeah. Yep, I'm going to be there shortly, Bob, so who knows? But mine is just by choice, so it is what it is.
Mine
but
was by choice.
Yeah, I don't want to diminish in any way whatsoever. But he was born on December 25th, 1958. He passed away today on December 21st, 2024. His number was 24, even though I believe he may have worn a few other numbers. As Dan said, he hit right-handed, but he threw left-handed. He was inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame in 2009. He was, as Dan mentioned, 5 feet 10 inches. He looked smaller. I had no idea he was that tall, Dan.
Well, when he's in the crouch, he was about 5'2".
Yeah, he was.
Hey, Bill Veck could have used him in that case.
Yeah, Eddie Goodell, right?
Yes. I believe that Rickey had 2 World Series rings. I believe one with the Athletics.
2
in
with the
89.
Athletics. 2
Oh,
with the
2.
Athletics.
Okay, I was wrong. 2 with the Athletics.
By the way, there's a contemporary player who I would think compares well with Rickey Henderson. Ellie De La Cruz, Cincinnati Reds.
Oh, that kid is a stud.
Yeah.
And he is just starting out, huh, Dan?
Just starting out already, an accomplished base stealer and a power hitter.
Yes. I've talked about it, and people rip me because I made a comment about the Reds one time, and I've said it even a few weeks ago. Ellie De La Cruz, wow, that is a bright side. But I still believe the guy I mentioned with the Braves. Look, at one time, Rickey Henderson was mentioned in the conversation as best player in Major League Baseball. I don't know if he ever, whether the fans believed it or Major League Baseball, but your Braves player, I believe, has taken the mantle from Trout. Who is the best player in baseball right now? And folks, I'm sorry, it is not Shohei. He's a DH. That's it.
And a pitcher. Pitcher.
But when was the last time he threw, Dan?
He'll throw again next year.
And I believe you. When he does, maybe I will go ahead and consider that. But best
Roger Noriega Award.
Oh no, the Roger Noriega Award was last given to Adam Dunn, the man who led Major League Baseball in the most players stranded on base. Yes, he had a marvelous year. He had 40 home runs and 100 RBIs, and he left almost 300 runners on base.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot, Dan. That's not a good player. But that's my personal opinion. That's the award, Bob. We used to call it the Adam Dunn Award. Whoever was having the worst year, we gave it to them. And it was only because, not that he was a bad player, but I felt he was overrated.
I can mention somebody that Bob would not want to hear his name. Freddie Freeman.
Okay. I'll go along with you.
Grand slam home run to win that World Series game and changed everything.
Yeah, look, how many of these players came up out of nowhere? Aaron Boone, Bucky Dent, people you wouldn't expect the heroics from.
Sure.
And they pop one into the stands, and that was a big moment in their careers. To this day, Bucky Dent is still referred to in Boston as Bucky blank blank Dent. But Mike Torres threw the pitch to him, and it damn near ruined Mike. Then Mike got traded to the Yankees, and the two of them became good friends. Same thing with I'm losing it now. The Dodgers and the Giants. Dan, help me out.
Dodgers to Giants?
Yeah, and they playoffs in what, 52, 54? Bobby Thompson and Ralph Branca.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So 51. 51.
They became very close, very good friends. But it ruined what do you call it, Branca's career.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had the privilege of speaking with Branca about 10 years ago with Tanya Mercado. She interviewed him, and Blog Talk Radio gave us the slight. They did not give us the pick of the day that day, and it was unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. But that's neither here nor there. How do you measure who is the best? And they're asking, why can't I see Bob?
Because I didn't shave this morning.
Ah, fair enough.
There was a problem with me pulling a picture of it. I'm not trying to hide. I'm not on the run. The probation officer's not looking for me.
Oh, I might be the guy on the run, but that's neither here nor there.
I apologize for that, but I was afraid once this came up that if I monkeyed around trying to get the picture on there, it would blow the whole thing for everybody.
No, hey, you're good. Dan, how do we compare or how do we measure these players? Because the fact of the matter is the game is played differently today than it was then. You're looking at materials, you're looking at, well, basically materials, the baseball itself, gloves, uniforms.
Night games, relief pitching, coast to coast travel. There are a
Yeah.
lot of factors that are different.
Coast to coast. Dan, what about playing in Hawaii, playing in Germany, playing in England?
That's true.
I mean, the players come back for that. They don't give them a couple of days off. They're backing right into the mix again. I just came back from England a little while ago, and I know I was tired.
Yeah, like Roger.
Yeah.
Yes, I am, as a matter of fact. What is the metric that they use? Is it OPS to
Yes,
measure
on
the
base plus slugging.
That has
on base
become the
plus slugging,
standard,
yes.
huh, Bob? Or Dan?
Yeah, it's all analytics. A
Yeah.
lot of baseball people put too much faith in analytics, and others just use the eye test. The Reds have brought back Terry Francona out of retirement. He's 65 years old. He's the new manager of the Reds. Watch what he does with Ellie De La Cruz.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the new generation of geeks that have taken over in the front office.
It's a shame that management is forcing managers to do these automatic moves. But folks, if you're frustrated with baseball, in my humble opinion, you want to fix baseball? Seriously, if you want to fix baseball, you limit the number of pitchers on the roster. That's it. That's it. It'll go back to the game of the 80s and the 70s, even 60s. You limit the number of pitchers. Now, the reason why they have so many pitchers is because of the explosion in home runs. So where do you do? What is it? Do you tailor the game to the fans? Well, I guess you do, right, Dan? Because Dan and I do not agree on the clock. Dan he's all right with it. And he and I are on the same page on the runner, that if it's so good during the regular season, why isn't it in the playoffs?
Oh, the Manfred man in extra innings. That's
Yeah.
despicable.
Yes.
Oh, you
If
mean the
it's-
ghost player?
Yeah.
The ghost runner. You know, I wrote an article that I think you reprinted on it, comparing what baseball has become today to Little League. I mean, it's a joke, and they're coming up now with some more absurd suggestions. You know, they're trying to fix something that ain't broken.
That's true. That's true.
You know, they say it moves the game along faster. They oh look, people got out 23 minutes earlier today. I think the people would rather be sitting in the stadium, watching a good game, a tight game, and no matter how many innings it goes, well, again within reason, than to have a flub like somebody on second base who didn't earn it.
Well, this is what irritates me, gentlemen, is Major League Baseball already had a rule for the number of, or for the length of time that the pitcher had.
Yeah.
They just never enforced it. So when baseball says, oh, we need to no, enforce the rules that you have now. Enforce the balk rule. Enforce the strike rule. Enforce the runner running down the first. Either you do or you don't. It's very simple, folks. Enforce the rules. We didn't need a clock. There was already a rule, but that's okay.
The one
It
thing
is
that
what
they've
it
come
is.
up with that I like now is the not the replay. Watching a replay, I'm sure Dan has seen it as well, and you have. You know, some of the really horrific calls that umpires have made, not necessarily because they're bad umpires, but because from the angle that they were looking at, they couldn't see it properly.
Oh, yes, I agree. I agree. Now, I like when old baseball heads are like, I like the old way, but then when someone cheats and they're like, no. Okay, that's a fair comment, and I appreciate that. Look, I am not against the clock in general, but we don't need a clock if they would just enforce the rule about pitchers. They had a number of seconds, but again, it's not enforced. It's just, I don't think we need a clock for everything, but that's okay. It's timeless. It is what it is. I will say that baseball attendance is up, and that's a good thing for the game long term.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I agree. I agree. And Roger, I need to get going.
Yeah, we do need to get going as well. I asked for a few minutes and we did an hour. Ladies and gentlemen, the sad fact of the matter is that Rickey Henderson has gone away. And we share in the grief of the family. We share in the grief of baseball. And I thank everyone in the chat room that came to spend time with us, as well as we share our grief with his former teammates and opponents, because as many times Rickey made people smile, he also pissed them off.
Yes, yes.
But in a great
Happy
way.
holidays to everybody. Especially Roger and Bob. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. And Roger, I look forward to seeing you on Travel with Radio.
Thank you. Yes, January 8th, 9th.
9th.
Yeah. Wow, it's already going to happen, the new year. Gentlemen, thank you.
Happy
Everyone in the
holidays,
chat room.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and a wonderful New Year to everybody.
I did forget that as well. Yes. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays. Folks, my one thought to you is, if you are wished Happy Hanukkah, if you are wished Merry Christmas, or you are wished Happy Holidays or Happy Kwanzaa, take it for what it is. Someone was wishing you well.
Yep.
And if they offend you, they're wishing you well. Take it for what it is.
I
And
agree
we
with
can
that
all be better for it.
100%. Not us Heisenberg doesn't want us to leave.
Yeah. Guys, we're out of here. Peace always. I thank my incredible co-hosts. A lot of stuff is happening next year, and I can't wait. And I know I'm pestering Dan to bring back a weekly Braves program, but it's okay. He laughs or he gives me a dirty look. He's like, yeah, whatever, dude. So beyond that, no, you know what? I'm hoping to bring a program where we talk about the teams, not necessarily have guests and stuff. But again, Dan's like, yeah, whatever, dude. You keep dreaming. But for Dan, Bob, I'm scorekeeper, and for everyone else in the chat room, today it just reminds us we hold on to what we have and we enjoy it while we can, because these programs aren't fun to remember those that have passed, but we do it because what they did for us, and that's why we are here in a tiny way. Again, our sympathy is with the Henderson family, and we hope you're able to get through this as best you can.
Teammates.
We'll see you guys.
Peace.
We're out.
You
Bye,
too,
Roger.
Captain Kirk.